Well, um, you know, my producing partner took a meeting with the super talented Donna Gigliotti, who had found this story about three African American women who were largely responsible for the U.S. making it in the space race and going on to do other things like, moon landings and making it to Mars and all kinds of projects that I looked up to when I was a kid, like this things that we had done as a species. Like there were three African American women who played very integral parts. And so she calls me after the meeting and says, "This is this project." And when you hear the elements, African American women, which I love, math, science, NASA, space, and Hampton Roads, Virginia. It was kind of like, okay, how do I not, you know, put every effort that I have into trying to make sure that we could be a part of this film? Like, we worked really hard to do it. And finally, when they let us in, we were able to play, substantial roles and take on really key positions in the situation to help make sure that like all of the tone was right, the taste was right, and it just seemed like something that we were supposed to be involved with. Like I lost my mind when Mimi told me about it, and she knew that I would. It's just been crazy the way that things line up. I mean, when you went on the set, there was a spirit about, the set. There was just an energy there. I mean, from production design by Wynn Thomas to like, um, to just, you know, um, Taraji's attitude about what this was and what this meant to her, or Octavia, or Janelle. Like everyone knew that this was something super special. I mean, hair and makeup, like everyone was just like sort of pitching it as if they were doing it for free. Like this was a like more than just a labor of love, but like a labor of importance. And so for me, when you put all those things together, it just kind of feels like something that's much bigger than us. And I feel like that's just a universal thing. Well, when I told my mom about the story, um, I thought she was going to be super excited about like the idea that it took place in Hampton Roads, and that was good to her. But she was like, "You actually met her," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And she reminded me of one of the events that our charity, well, it's not a charity, but one of our organizations put together. Our organization is called From One Hand to Another, and Leland Melvin, who's an astronaut who went to space a couple times, he brought Katherine there. And so we took pictures and everything, but I didn't know her story. I didn't know her story. So my mom is the one that reminded me that I had met her before. And that to me, like when you add all that up, you know, that's just like, it's either serendipity or it is pretty impressive mathematics. Well, I did two original songs. One song is called Running, and that was about like what Catherine must have been thinking as she had to run to the bathroom, for 30 to 45-minute round trips, just because not only did she have to use a segregated bathroom, but which was on the other side of the campus, but there were campus bikes. But back in those days, women didn't wear shorts or pants. So you either wore a skirt, a long skirt, or a dress, and that just made it impossible to ride a bike. So I thought, man, what was that savant mathematic mind thinking, or that mathematical savant mind thinking at that time about like the future? And then there was I See a Victory, which was something that we all can relate to. It's like when you're in a scenario where you feel like the odds are completely stacked against you, and it's when you realize that God is much bigger, or if you don't subscribe to that, the universe, which you definitely live in, is really much bigger than you this problem or your solutions, and that essentially everything's going to be okay. So those were those two songs, and then there was a body of work that I had been working on before, and I didn't know why. Couldn't make anything come together around it, and I realized that that's what this was all for, because it was all 60s. So it's crazy. And then bringing on my big brother Hans Zimmer was just what I knew we needed to do. I needed that juxtaposition. I wanted someone to come in and work with me on the score, who was gonna, extract and extrapolate as much as we can together out of the purpose of the story. So it's not just another score. Because here's the other thing. When you think about like scores, heroic music is always something that we never like really thought about it in an objective way. But heroic music, in America at least, is always like Anglo or Eurocentric, always. Like, that may be the music that goes through your mind when you're watching like, a stellar situation in Apollo or Braveheart or Captain America or Superman. But what goes through the mind of like an African American? And does it have to be Shaft? You know what I mean? Or what goes through the mind of, a mestizo? Or what goes through the mind of, a Chinese American or a Korean American? Does the heroic music always have to sound like, generic temp music? Which what is that? So that is one of the things that we have been wrestling with, and it has been so fun to just discover these new definitions of what heroic music can sound like as it pertains to different cultures. So it's cool. But I think that music is the transcription of one's emotions. So natural, but it's no different than when you are thinking something in your mind and you transcribe it into words. That's literally what we're doing. We're just doing it in an auditorial way versus oral. There are films that probably have no score in them or no kind of soundtrack or anything like that. But for most films, the music is what helps to communicate what the director is trying to convey at that particular moment. It just helps to, it's like this interesting garnishing of sounds that help to communicate a specific emotion. It's like it's aiding in the roller coaster ride. Really beautiful story for humanity. African American women who are holding the torch for women worldwide, which essentially is for humanity. And being a part of this film, I absolutely have like a belief in African American women, especially in this country, for what they can do and the kind of advancements that they're gonna make. They're making, but they're going to make. And by the way, we're uncovering the advancements that they already made. Right? It's a treasure, and I happen to believe there's more of this where this comes from. Like, I feel like young girls are gonna look at this and see not only can it be done, but it's been done before. Maybe maybe pop culture of the past just didn't find that detail important in their narratives, but maybe that's what was wrong with it. But I think that Donna Gigliotti finding this story, Elizabeth Gabler, checking off, signing off for this to happen, Stacey Snider being involved as she is. Like, I feel like all these women are coming together in concert to do something really amazing that doesn't make anybody feel funny. Like, you should see, like, when we do research or whatever, like, men are holding their women tight. They're not feeling funny about it. That's why I know it's done right. No one's feeling funny. Everyone's, like, wanting to lift the women, and the women are essentially lifting us all.